think it'd be pretty easy. That's probably the only way you could do it, because you don't want the meeting to be crazy. You want it to be based on something that, it's tangible. All right, previous placings, previous year, or state qualifier, state medalist, something that's easy. And that's usually what the states that seed it, that's how they do it. So, again, it's something that's plausible, something that we could put in.
Welcome back to the North Florida Wrestling Show, and welcome to State Talk 2024. We have some amazing guests for you today. We have Mike Crowder of the Lincoln High School Trojans. We have John Wainwright of the Swanee Bulldogs. And we have Ricky Marcus, that's right, Ricky Cheese of the Florida Wrestling Room. All right, guys, thank you so much for being on. Let's go ahead and get into it. Mike, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem.
Mr. Ricky, thank you so much for making time for us.
My pleasure, as always.
All right, and John Wainwright, welcome back and congratulations.
Same, appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's a hell of a last lap for you, huh?
Yeah, well, we've got 8 seniors next year. I probably won't be too far away.
Oh man, that's how that happens. They always pull you back in. But,
yeah.
All right, well, let's go and get to it. State tournament is around the corner, so might as well talk a little bit of the hot topics that come around with state. I want to start out with this one with you, Coach Crowder, because I know this is something you kind of mentioned earlier this year and a couple of times, I think a few years ago. 5th place regions going to state. Can you explain why you think that's such a good idea and how that would increase the state tournament as is?
Well, I mean, ever since we've had the bracketing system, the way it works with the formula, there's always chances where really, really good kids don't make it. I mean, it happened to us this past weekend. We have a state medalist who did not make it back to the state tournament because he got kind of caught in the cross, and 2 guys we beat qualified. We had an option to forfeit a match in the quarters. We chose not to, and we lost, and we didn't qualify. And he really is a top 4 kid in the state, so it's super unfortunate. And that tends to happen because you can't separate the best kids in the bracket sometimes, because if there's 2 guys in the same district that happen to be in the same spot, it can happen. So what we wanted to try to get past was to wrestle to a 5th place match. At the state tournament in the first round, we would have the 5ths wrestle the 4ths from their own region as kind of a play-in to the bracket. We thought it was a win-win, because, you get both the kids qualify, right? And next thing you know, you've got more people coming to state. And then, you end up getting the best kids that would have qualified had we seeded it in the bracket at the state tournament. It just seemed like the right call, because how else can you fix it? Unless you're going to seed the region, right? And even then, if you seed it, it still doesn't work, because you could probably only seed the district champions to make sure that you avoid everybody, and it still kind of causes the crosses to happen, right? And it's happened. It was the same way even when the 3 of us were in high school, where the bracketing system is still the same, right? Yeah. So it's been around forever, and to me, it was an easy way to fix it, right? But and it seemed like most everybody was good with it. They voted it unanimous the first time. So we thought it was a slam dunk last year, and some folks showed some opposition to it. We're going to put it back in again. I've already submitted it again for another round, because I think it's the right thing to do.
What was the reason for the opposition to it?
There was a couple different reasons that the folks said that it would take more time. Well, last year we did 2-2-2 for all the wrestlebacks. Well, one of our caveats to get the 5ths in the region passed was that we were going to go back to 1-2-2. So we were taking away time so we could put this in, because really we thought this round, I mean, it's 4 matches per weight class on 3 mats. It's going to take like maybe an hour and a half, maybe max. So we were just going to start a little bit earlier on day 1, and it was going to be a wash. So we just assumed that it was going to be put in. And then, it is what it is. That, people will have different arguments to it. In my opinion, we are sacrificing a lifetime of memories for kids for a little bit of comfort for adults. So I'm going to pick kids every time.
Yeah, for sure.
You got any thoughts on it, John?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. And unfortunately, I thought it had passed. So I got the region, and they're telling me, no, it got brought back. But I'm in agreement with Mike. This definitely needs to happen because I've had over 20-something years with Mike. There's a lot of good kids that got caught in that and just, and we had it at our region. We had several state placers. They're not going back this year because they got caught in the same little formula.
Well, let me ask you. So, what happens to fourth and fifth both go to state and they wrestle each other off? Basically, is the loser of that out of the tournament completely, or do they drop in the consolation bracket just as normal? How does that play out?
Well, so that was part of the debate too. So, and part of that debate was, do we let them wrestle back through, or do we drop them out? So, the first pitch we gave them was that they would wrestle back through. Well, then they kind of were like, well, that adds even more time. So I was like, well, to me, drop them out. They're state qualifiers. They were the lowest qualifier in their region, and then they get the memories. You get the T-shirts. You get the sweatshirts. The fans come. They hang out and watch a tournament and build up for next season, right? So to me, it was a win-win. And that's the way most of the committee felt, and that's why we're going to try to put it back in again. But we could do it a bunch of different ways. You could let them wrestle back through, but here's my problem with that. If you do that, then do you stack one region more than you stack the other on the medal stand too? It was a debate that we talked about, and it'll be talked about again this year when we meet with the committee. So my original thought was, one and done, and people will argue that, well, that's not fair. You go all the way down there for one and done. They do that with every sport anyway. People drive all the way down for one basketball game or one soccer game. Our girls did it today. They went down for the Final Four, and they happened to lose in the Final Four. They're done. Are they going to stay and watch a tournament? I would think they would. But, they could have came home tonight too. So it happens all the time. So the arguments seem to be kind of like I didn't think they had all the information they needed about why we need it and why wrestling is different than other sports.
Right. All right. Well, so kind of moving on to something that you were talking about, just earlier that might solve the whole problem anyway. Ricky, go ahead and take this one. Seeding at regions and states. I know we do it at districts, but past that, it ends up in the formula. I know you spend a lot of time on rankings and looking up, how these guys do against each other, who did well in a tournament. How do you think adding a seeding at regions and state would help, the competition, or making sure that we get those best matches, as I think a lot of people kind of argue for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, you're going to get the best matches. We just don't want to see them in the quarters or the semis. I would like to see them in the finals. Get these kids seeded as properly as we can. And I think as a group, whoever's doing the seeding, we're competent enough. We know these kids well enough to seed them properly and let them meet where they're supposed to meet. You see it every single year. I still don't know how this formula works. I've tried to figure it out, and for the love of me, I don't know how it works. I thought I was getting close a couple of times to figure it out, cracking the code, but I didn't. But there's got to be a way to see these kids and let them meet up in the finals. So many weight classes. I was doing the rankings till like 4 or 5 in the morning. So many of the weight classes, they're meeting in the semis. The number 1 and the number 2 kids in the state. And I'm like, this is horrible, because then what happens is, and not that the other side of the bracket doesn't deserve it, of course they do, but it just doesn't make for as an exciting finals as it could or should be. You want the finals to be blowing that roof off the arena, man. The 2 best kids in the state going at it. That's just my feelings. I mean, I'm sure you guys feel the same way. But I think we should definitely be seeing.
What do you think, John? I know you got a bit of a dog in you like me, and really just put out Russell, whoever's in front of you. But do you have a bit of a feeling on that? Think we should seed a little bit? Do you think North Florida would get a bit of an unfair bias from down south? Because down south generally tends to be more stronger. But do you think some of our more well-rounded North Florida guys will get, I don't know, maybe slighted a little bit?
I think what we would have to do is that North Florida is going to have to travel, but we're going to have to get South Florida to travel up too.
Yep,
Also.
absolutely.
Swanee, we're going down there, every weekend pretty much. It's rare that the 5 years I've been here that we stay up north at all. We're trying to go down there and see Cardinal Gibbons. Can't find them. I mean, they're just so far south. And right now, they have no reason to come up. They've got all the competition right there. So I think I love the seating ideal, but we would have to meet in the middle somewhere.
Yes.
Lincoln would have to get Lincoln and Fleming Island would need to get down there and see those guys, and so would we.
That's a great point. It's going to take a little give and take from everybody.
Yeah.
To seed it properly, you would definitely have to do that for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
So most states that seed it, right? I mean, so with the regional setup, you would seed the region champs, right? That's usually how folks do it. It's the easiest way to do it, and you would end up basing it on previous placings, right, or previous qualifying, or whatever the highest credential of each one of those regional champs. That's the way you would do it if you were going to see the region too. That way because you have to separate the kids from the same areas, right? And it's not perfect either, right? It's because there could be the two best kids. If they're in the same region, they're going to separate anyway. So it won't really matter, but it's the best way you could do it is to seed those region champs or seed those district champions, and then you could separate. We did it today, for Vaniel, just to see what would have happened if we would have been able to seed the region for the champs. He would have qualified easy and been in the position to medal this week. So, I think that's something that can be discussed. That's actually something that's as a backup to my fifths in the region scenario is, can we seed the champs? The big argument on that would, for a long time for FHSA was, well, then you lose the underdog. You lose the kid that, randomly gets through that wouldn't have gotten through normal. It's a tough one. I mean, the bracketing system as it's current set up, there's only 3 brackets, right? And they shift them and they rotate them. So they're different each year most of the time. Now this year it was weird because the weight classes changed. So how they shifted them, some of them are the same as they were last year. Right? If you're basing them on if you thought that, that 50 was 52, if that makes any sense, right? So, but there's only 3 versions of it, and they shift it. Track shifts them, and it used to be FHSA would pick a direction like up or down. So it's not crazy to figure out if you see how they track it. There could be more than 3, but there's not usually more than 3. Like you could switch the 2s and the 3s on either side, and so you could end up making 9 versions or so of it. But right now there's really only 3 if you look at them and you track them. Right. So I'm not opposed to seeding the district champs or the region champs. I think it'd be pretty easy. That's probably the only way you could do it, and because you don't want the meeting to be crazy. You want it to be based on something that it's tangible. All right, previous placings, previous year, or state qualifier, state medalist. Something that's easy, and that's usually what the states that seed it. That's how they do it. So again, it's something that's plausible, something that we could put in. There's all kinds of different versions going on right now around the state. Not everybody's following the formula like it was in the past. Football has kind of broken the seal on that about how can we adjust this and make it different. The other team sports haven't followed along just yet, but we talk about them. We're going to talk about this stuff at the Wrestling Coaches Advisory meeting, and if we think something needs to go in, we'll fight for it if they'll allow us to do it.
Well, let me ask you this about changing things up, and I was thinking about this this week a little bit, kind of going off of what John was saying about how we have to go out and travel, all the time up here in North Florida if we want to see the South Florida guys. I would love to see a state tournament ran somewhere up north. It doesn't have to be way up there in like Pensacola, but I would love to see one ran up here, so you could have guys from the north that are like, oh, I'd love to go catch the state championships this week. Do you think we could ever get to where they're running the classifications in different locations, or splitting up like 1A and 2A and 3A and girls? One championship, ran up north, one up south, and rotating them? Or do you think we're pretty much stuck around that Central Florida location, which I understand it being centrally located? Do you think we'll ever see a state championship up north?
Well, it's
Anybody
been
else?
bid. I mean, it goes out to bid every couple of years, so people can bid on it. I mean, we bid on it. Shoot, before it went to Silver Spurs, when there was a year where the dates were a conflict, so it got bid on up here. FAMU bid on it. They're probably the only venue up here that could even do it, though. But they just want too much. They want too much money. They want everything, and they can't. They're not going to get everything. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the only thing that makes more money than wrestling in the state of Florida is football for the state tournament. It's not even close, right? So if you look at all the other sports, you're like, I don't know, Final Four for basketball. It's not. You got 4 teams in a big venue. They don't make the money that we make. Like the wrestling state tournament is crazy. If you look at how many people actually go, you're talking, 500 schools in the same spot, and everybody's bringing fans and family. So it's a little bit crazy, right? But you have to have a venue that can hold that amount of mats, and you have to have somebody that can run it, right? And you have to have enough parents and things like that can run it. Because actually, when it was getting bid up here, the Tallahassee folks called me and they're like, "Hey, we're bidding on this," and I was like, "Ooh," and I was sitting there thinking, "Oh man, these guys want me to run the state tournament." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right," and we kind of talked about it, and we knew we were going to have to get the whole North Florida community together to actually do it if they pulled it off, and the bid just didn't happen to go through. But it does come up, back in the early 90s. At one point, they did move them and separate the different ones. We had, especially when they split the 3 divisions, the 2A state tournament was in a different location than 3 and 4. So they did have different venues at one point. I think that what may happen, though, as girls grow, that may change it a little bit. They may have some options for the girls tournament, because when they go to 2 classifications, which I would assume the way it's growing, it won't be long.
Yeah,
they'll probably have to separate the two tournaments, which it's good and bad, right? So, but yeah, when it comes out for bid, the venues have to want it, though. That's the other part too. They have to actually bid for it.
Ricky, what are your thoughts on it?
I would love to see it in the state capitol. I would love it. I mean, they do that in New York. It's in Albany. Pennsylvania, it's always in Hershey. I would love to see it in North Florida. I definitely think that's cool. Or, move it around more often than it is right now. You get used to. First of all, I loved Lakeland. I just thought the whole atmosphere, it just felt like state weekend. There was an aura about it where you just got excited. I don't get that as much at Silver Spurs. And somebody brought up a really good point that I didn't even think of it. There's a lot of distractions around Silver Spurs. You got the theme parks, you got this, you got that. So when a kid gets, eliminated and the parents are like, you know what, we're so proud of you. Let's go to the park and celebrate. And people are leaving, man. And then Saturday night, there's nobody there to watch the state finals. But no, I would love to see it up north. I'm a definite fan of that. So if that ever happens, I'll definitely be there 100%.
All right, so you mentioned kind of Lakeland Center. That was actually moving into our next question. So the last time I've been to the state tournament was my senior year, and it was at Lakeland Center, and I really loved that area. Not just because of senior year, just because, like you said, it has that really cool feel to it. So I have yet to be at the Silver Spurs arena. I've heard there's a lot more space for mats, which makes sense, with girls wrestling growing, as Coach Crowder was pointing out. Coach Wainwright, can you tell me your thoughts on Lakeland Center versus Silver Spurs? Which one do you prefer? Do you think they're both, comparable? What are your feelings on it?
As far as mat space, I think Tribbett has mentioned that they've just got more mat space at Silver Spurs, especially with the girls joining us. But I want to go back to that North Florida venue. I would love to have it up in Tallahassee. Um, and like Mike said, we would have to get the college, the Civic Center or something like that, something big that could cover all those mats. But
Yeah, Lawson's the only spot that can really do it is the one up FAMU. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I love Lakeland. I had no problem with Lakeland. I like the traffic much better than I liked in Kissimmee. That traffic to Cindy is rough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I also liked how the hotel was connected right to the venue. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. I think the last time it was in Lakeland, correct me if I'm wrong, was 2014. I think 15 it went to Silver Spurs.
So it's been about a couple of years.
That sounds about
That's right.
About the time. Right.
Yeah, 14 was the last year because my youngest son, Bryce, wrestled his first state tournament at Lakeland, and Lakeland. That was 2014. Then his last 3 years were at Silver Spurs. So it was definitely 14 was the last year it was there.
It was. That was Tristan's senior year. He was in the finals that year, second time in a row, and it was at Lakeland because he never wrestled at Silver Spurs.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you guys have been in the game for quite a bit, both as athletes and as coaches. Can you give me your thoughts on the evolution of the state tournament in Florida over the last 20 to 30 years? Are we moving in the right directions? Or what kind of things can we work on that maybe we have not mentioned in the podcast so far? Mike, go ahead.
Oh, I definitely think the tournament is way better. I mean, all the additions of the technology make the tournament run better. Running it on track makes it so much easier for fans and the kids to follow what they're doing. I think all that speeds everything up. It helps us streamline everything. I like the way that they're introducing the kids for the finals now. They're adding some flair to it. That part's really cool. And Silver Spurs has enough room. That's the other part that's hard because Lakeland doesn't have enough mat. We don't have enough mats for what we're doing right now. When we were only 3 divisions and everything was a little smaller, it was different. But adding the 4th division, you can't really do it, right? And, that's just why we're running 3 days also. So, and, the 3-day format is interesting too. I was torn on it when we did it the first time. That when we didn't have the 3rd day weigh-in, it was good and bad. You had some huge kids on the 3rd day. But I think that now that we went back to it, there's just so much more time. It allows you more kid time with the kids because there's more downtime and you're not in the building as much all day. I think that part's good. So I do like where it's at and how it's evolved. And obviously there's always things that we can add and change and fix. So, I mean, and we talk about this stuff in the Wrestling Advisory Council meeting every year. We'll talk about, okay, what do we like? What do we not like? What can we try to change? So it's one of the main agenda items every year.
All right, Ricky, what about you?
Yeah, well, 1986 was my senior year, and the state tournament was probably one of the smallest gymnasiums in the state of Florida, at Fort Myers High School, and it was a tiny gym, man. Yeah. And back then, it was just 3A and 4A. 3A went on one weekend, 4A went on the following weekend. But it did not feel like a state tournament. It felt like a really big Christmas tournament to me with a bunch of really good guys. Then it started to progress a little bit, and now you're in an arena. It's just a much bigger feel. I don't know if they could ever do it in a gymnasium ever again. That would probably never happen with the way wrestling has progressed, which I'm so happy for that. But yeah, back then it was in a little tiny gym, and it was 2 days, 2-day tournament, and that was it. But now, definitely, I love it, man. It's like Christmas to me. State weekend is like Christmas to me. I'm looking forward to it.
What about you, Coach Wainwright?
Same. The venues just opened everything up. We're coaching, we're finishing a match, and I've got 20 ex-wrestlers texting me about watching the matches. It's just great. The families that can't travel, they can sit right there and watch their kids wrestle. And I'm with these guys. I was there in Fort Myers in '86, and you're right, Ricky. It was the gym was packed. There was no room in there, but
Yeah.
everybody's, packed in the stands and packed on the floor right there around the mat.
Yeah, it's true. He's right. I remember in my quarterfinals match, my dad was on the mat. My dad's not a coach. He was like literally standing on the side of the mat screaming stuff to me. I'm like, what is going on here? Get in the stands, Pops. But yeah, they didn't care. I mean, that's how it was, man. It was like a big dual meet or a big Christmas tournament. And you would never see that today. You can barely get on the floor if you're a coach at the state tournament now, but it's advanced quite a bit.
All right, guys. Well, I know that you guys, especially Coach Wainwright and Mike, you got a long drive ahead of y'all tomorrow. Before we send it, do you guys have anything to say to some of the wrestlers that are going down, that maybe going down for the first time or maybe even going down for the last time? Any words of wisdom that you can give to them? Go ahead, Mike.
If you're going down there, whether it's the first or the last time, all you can do is just trust in what you've done already. We've already done all the work, and now you just get out there and show it. Don't get caught in the lights. Just worry about the guy in front of you, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah, we had this talk today at the end of practice. We prepared. We went everywhere we should have went. We wrestled, knockouts, Lake Gibson, and some of those tournaments are just as tough as what we're headed to right now.
For sure.
But it's just be loose, have a good time, and give it your best.
What about you, Mr. Cheese?
Yeah, man, just enjoy it, live in the moment. It's something that you're going to remember for the rest of your life, so make the best of it. Take it one match at a time. Embrace that grind. Have fun. Like you said, Coach, have fun with it. And win or lose, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. Just keep plugging forward and just enjoy the hell out of it, because it's an experience that you'll never, ever forget.